Well, I want to thank you for attending our meeting tonight of the Westerville City Board of Education. And before we begin, let's cover a few housekeeping duties. Just to remind you that in our new facility here, which is wonderful, on the to the right of where you came in, there are restrooms, and just where you entered the conference room. The first thing we're going on our agenda tonight is to administer the oath of office. So, Mr. Griffith, if you could do that with our new board members.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah.
Basically, just going to read this to you. You just say your name when I tell you to. Okay? Okay, will you raise your right hand, please? And I state your name.
I, Nancy Westerville, Tracy Davidson,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Ohio, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as board member in and for the Westerville City School District, Franklin and Delaware Counties, Ohio, to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office and until my successor is chosen and qualified. If so, say I do.
I do.
You're on board.
All right. All right, we welcome our new members. Now I'm going to call the meeting to order, and if you would all stand with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a couple things. The agenda will be displayed on the screens in front of you, and then you may also click, if your people at home can click on the website, www.wcsoh.org. And there will be an opportunity, only one opportunity tonight to speak at agenda item 4.01. And that will cover the items 5.01 through 13.01. And please state the agenda item that you're going to speak to at that time. And you will have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. All right. And we have nobody on the agenda to speak at this point tonight, so we can move on. So we will begin with the election of the president for the school year for the board for 2014. May I have a nomination for the president?
I'd like to nominate Dr. Nestor Baker.
A second?
I second that.
Thank you. We have motion and second. Any other nominations at all? All right, then may I have a motion to close the nominations?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And would the treasurer please call the roll to close the nominations for our board president?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Vilardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Crow?
Yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
All right, then we have a motion for Dr. Baker and seconded to be our board president. Would the treasurer please call the roll for that?
Mr. Vilardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Crow?
Yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
All right, the motion is unanimous, and I'm going to turn everything over to Dr. Baker. So thank you and congratulations. And we'll trade seats here.
And name tags,
And name tags.
so we don't forget who we are.
Yeah, true. All right, thank you.
Okay, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Trying to decide what my proper name is. And it is Nestor Baker, just in case you're wondering. That's what Bart was asking. Well, this is interesting to be back in the seat. So, haven't been here for a while. If I flub up my Robert's rules, I hope you'll forgive me. And with that, though, moving on in the agenda, we will be moving to 5.04, nominations for the office of Vice President. I'd like to open the floor for nominations for the office of Vice President.
I'd like to nominate Mrs. Davidson.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
With a motion and a second, double seconds.
double second.
Are there any other nominations for Vice President of the Board? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the nominations
So
for the
moved.
office of Vice President? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Guess that's me. Second.
Well, I would have done it if you hadn't.
Okay.
That's right. With that, would you call the roll, please, Bart?
Dr. French,
Yes.
Mr. Vilardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Crowe, Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes. Nominations are closed. And now we'd like to call the roll for the election for the office of Vice President. This is a continuation of item 5.04.
Mr. Vilardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Crowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. French,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes. The motion is unanimously approved for the office of Vice President. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
All right, moving on in the agenda to item 6. That is the Board of Education 2014 meeting calendar. And item 6.01 is a resolution to establish the 2014 Board of Education meeting calendar. Is there a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, is there discussion? Is there anyone who would like to tell us or speak to the calendar in any way?
Madam President, I guess I can give a few updates. Tried to set the meeting calendar similar to previous years. One of the recommendations administration is making in regard to the calendars, you'll see on there, some of those dates, typically the first meeting of each month, we have squared off between being a work session and a regular session. And I think in some of our conversations, particularly at the retreat, the idea of more work sessions for the board on small snippets of items was preferred. So we did put that in. I didn't put any specific dates in for retreats. Like to talk about those more in the future, which are more along the lines of an extended long day work session than the shorter ones. So the intent there is to provide more opportunity for the board to have public discussion on some items as we're moving forward in our progress towards decision-making as we move forward. So other than that, I think the dates, the other ones to note would be the July 9th date. That odd one comes from personnel when we're hiring teachers coming from other districts. There's the state July 10th cutoff date. After July 10th, the district does not have to release someone who's in contract. So if we're making offers to people who may need to come out of contracts with other school districts, the board needs to act on it before that. That's what that date is intended for. So that's why that odd date is in there for you. And I believe the June 30th one, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Griffith, relates to the closing of the books at the end of the fiscal year, and we try and run that to the bitter end so the treasurer's office can get everything ready. So everything else there should be as it stands, and hopefully you'll, if you have questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Questions? At this point, it all fits on one page. Don't expect it to stay that way. With no questions, and thank you, Dr. Kellogg. Bart, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. French,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mrs. Crowe,
Yes.
Mr. Vilardo,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, the calendar has been approved. Moving on to item 7 on the agenda, request from the treasurer. Item 7.01, the resolution to approve requests from the treasurer. Could I have a motion on this item, please?
So moved.
Cindy.
Lots of motions.
You got Cindy.
And a second? Thank you. We have a second as well. With that, Bart, would you like to talk about this?
Yes, please. Madam President, members of the board, there's a lot of things on here. This really is a cookie cutter type meeting for us. That you guys give me basically a lot of power to do things ahead of time without you knowing it, but you give me sort of approval at the beginning of the year to do it. To go through and just tell you what these are, the first one is purchase necessary services and materials and make a payment of bills and salaries. Basically, we report back what those are, but you give me the authority to pay them so that I can pay them and then give you a report later. Transfer outstanding stale dated checks to the general fund. What this means is that in June, when we close our books for June, any outstanding checks we have, we basically submit those to the fund in the state of Ohio that's unclaimed. That's what that's for. We try to collect as many or cash as many as we can, but sometimes you can't, so we basically send them to unclaimed funds for Ohio. This is also the authority to execute all contracts in a normal course of business within the appropriated amounts. To advance funds from the general fund to other funds as needed to meet obligations and report these advances to the board, which we would bring to you and actually have approval for those advances. But it gives me the authority to do it first so that we don't get in trouble. To invest interim or inactive funds at the most productive interest rate as they become available for Ohio. Sign all payroll checks, all general account checks, purchase orders, and all contracts with the original mechanical or facsimile signature of the treasurer. Request amended certificates of estimated resources. What this basically means is we actually petition each week to both Franklin and Delaware County for any taxes that are currently paid from like January 1. This gives me the authority to request for those advances so that we collect the interest, not the county. So that gives me the authority to do that each one. Again, request and execute board advances. Taxes, tax abatement notification. What this is, if a business located within the Westerville City School Districts submits basically a complaint to the county auditor wanting to reduce their taxes, this basically gives me the authority to have them notify us when that happens. So basically we send it to them, which gives them the authority to notify me that somebody has filed a claim to reduce their taxes. Reading the minutes. Also, the Board of Education dispenses with the reading of the minutes at the board meeting as long as we have those meetings, or as long as you receive them 2 days prior to the board meeting. So this basically just gives me authority to do a lot of stuff on your behalf at the beginning of each year. Next year, when you're here, we'll be doing the same thing. It's sort of a cookie cutter thing every year that you basically give us authority to handle the business of the district on your behalf. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Are there questions, clarifications that anyone would like? Hearing none. Mr. Griffith, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Crowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Vilardo?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes, 7.01, the requests from the treasurer is approved. Moving on in the agenda to item 8. This is the tax abatement notification. 8.01, the resolution to approve tax abatement notification. Can I have a motion to bring this to the table?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, who is going
Me.
to discuss
Me.
this? All right.
Madam President, members of the board, the tax abatement notification basically gives me the authority to submit to the state that if there's a business that wants to come into the Westerville City School District in Delaware or Franklin County, this basically tells them that they have to notify us that they're going to apply for an abatement. Doesn't mean they're going to get one, but this is a notification that we are to receive if the county receives a notification request, they're supposed to forward it to us. And this just gives us the authority to ask for that request.
Questions?
And that covers both counties?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else? Hearing none. The roll, please.
Dr. French?
Yes.
Mrs. Crowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Vilardo?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes, the resolution to approve the tax abatement notification has been approved. Item 9 on the agenda is Board of Education participation. 9.01, the resolution to approve Board of Education participation. Dr. Kellogg, you going to talk about this?
Need a motion.
Oh, darn. See, I told you.
Sorry, sorry.
I will get my Robert's Rules Manual out and memorize it, I swear. Could I have a motion on this?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, who would like to discuss this?
I can take that if you want. Every year, we basically on the table have three items to participate with the Ohio School Boards Association Legal Assistance Fund. We basically pay a yearly cost into the Legal Assistance Fund. And what this fund does, if there are issues in the state of Ohio that the Board of Education, the Ohio Schools Board of Education believes is necessary that they defend, which affects most districts, or if not all districts in Ohio, they use that money for that purpose. If you remember when we had a challenge to a levy last year, we actually used $20,000 of reimbursement from the Ohio School Board Association because we participate in that fund. So it's a fund that we basically pay into that helps really all schools in Ohio if they need it. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is the Westerville Chamber of Commerce, an annual cost we pay into them. The other one is the Ohio School Boards Association annual membership dues to be part of the Ohio School Boards Association itself. The number on here is the number I was given for the cost this year. It's not an estimate, it's an actual cost.
Is that, can you share that number? So
$7,504 gets us in the Board of Education, the Ohio School Boards Association, that's the membership for our district for the year.
Comments or questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious about how that number is determined. Is it like size of district?
It's usually
I mean,
the size of the district,
okay.
number of students.
I suspect. Okay, thank you.
Comments or questions? In past years, we have used the Legal Defense Fund several different times, and it has proven to be a big cost saver for us in many ways. As regards our memberships, Cindy, I know you have been very active in the School Boards Association. In years past, I was. There will be plenty of opportunities for anyone to become involved as you would like to do so. It's an excellent learning opportunity for all of us, and hopefully we can all take advantage of that. Our chamber membership is also important to us as one of the largest employers in the area, as well as for the community ties and connections that our chamber membership brings.
And do you know how they base the $770 on our chamber fees? I guess.
do not know that. I don't know if Dr. Kellogg knows that or not. I don't know how that
Is that
fee
the same as last year's amount? Probably was.
I can look at that. It's got to be close.
I kind of forget. But we're charged, even as a school district. I guess I always question this one because wondering why the chamber's charging the school district $770. But I know any industry, any business is charged. But
We can certainly ask the question. Maybe they'll refund it.
I always question $770 for the school district to pay. So that might be worth checking into for the future.
You know,
too.
I did do a little looking into that, and I know that there are anywhere between 500 to 600 businesses that participate not just in Westerville City, but in Blendon as well as Genoa. And what they do is we can participate in their professional development, any of their activities. If there's a fee, we do have to pay that fee, but it gives us visibility, access to their members, and it really helps us build relationships. So,
Yeah, I understand that.
Hold on there.
But when we participate, we still pay to participate.
it's a small
Yeah,
fee, though,
I-
to those things.
Yeah.
One of the things, Dr. French, I have to call everybody by their official title, don't I? Okay.
No, not necessarily.
Not you? Honey?
Yeah, that's fine, too.
I'll be in a lot of trouble
Since we're
doing
going
that
to
one.
get to know
wouldn't
each other sitting next to each other.
I? One of the things I know is that even nonprofits have to pay fees to
So as a
Chamber of
church, you
Commerce.
pay too?
If we were to join, if we were to join a Chamber of Commerce, we'd even be charged. All entities are.
Okay, I bring it up as a question mark, so, I still am concerned, but that's all right.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. The roll, please.
Mr. Vilardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mrs. Crow,
Yes.
Dr. French,
Yes,
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes. Resolution 9.01, approving Board of Education participation, has been approved. Moving on to the next item of business, it's number 10 on the agenda. That's state and federal funded programs. 10.01 is a resolution to participate in state and federal funded programs for fiscal year 2014. Could I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second.
This was mine again.
This is Bart's meeting.
Bart's meeting.
Pretty much. Madam President, member of this board, these are all the state and federal funded grant programs that we participate in throughout the year. We're participating in most of these now. Sometimes they come in late, so we pretty much put all the federal funds that we know of on this resolution so that I don't have to bring it back to you as they piecemeal and come in. We try to hit them all. So that's why you're just basically giving us approval. Those federal and state grants all have specific requirements tied to them. That's the reason we get them. So it's not like general fund money. They're state and federal. They have certain specific things they have to do, but we have to approve to be part of them. So what we're doing now is we're basically giving approval to be a part of any one of them that we receive between now and December.
Thank you. Comments or questions? I hear none. The roll, please.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. French,
Yes.
Mrs. Crowe, Mr. Vilardo,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, 10.01, the resolution to participate in state and federal funded programs for fiscal year 2014 has been approved. Moving on to item 11 on the agenda, this is the appointment of the Audit Committee. 11.01 is the appointment of the Audit Committee, and this is to consider a resolution to appoint the following members for calendar year 2014. Tiffany C. Stubbs, CPA CFE, Rebecca Vasquez-Skillings, Matthew A. Wilson, JD CPA, L. Michael Howard, CPA, and Robert L. Edwards. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. The motion and a second. Are there comments or questions or information anyone would like to share?
I'll share.
What a surprise.
What's that? Sorry. If you remember last year when we had an appointment of the audit committee, we changed the board policy last year. We used to have people that could stay on pretty much in perpetuity, I guess you would call it. We changed the board policy last year so that you could no longer be on there basically one-year terms, but for a maximum of 3 years. Okay, and so currently Tiffany Stubbs has completed her first year. Rebecca Vasquez-Stillings has completed her second year, actually. She was new last year. The 3 names we added this year was Matthew Wilson, Michael Howard, and Robert Edwards. These are all appointed for a 1-year term. If we so choose, we can ask them to come back for an additional year until they hit the 3 years. When the 3 years are done, they have to set out at least 1 year. We had five individuals apply this year to be on it. I tried to select the ones that had the CPA kind of experience. Mr. Edwards didn't have that, but he wanted to be on it last year, and so since I got 2 in a row from him, we asked him as well. Now, one of these hasn't replied yet. We're playing phone tag, so as far as I know, they want to be on it because they sent the application to me to be part of that. But these will be for a 1-year term. We typically don't meet until December of next year once the audit is completed for this fiscal year. So it's going to be a while before we meet, but that's what the policy says, is that they're to be selected at the organizational meeting.
Comments or questions?
It looks like a good crowd and a lot of good experience on that group. So I appreciate that for you looking them all over, Bart. It's hard.
This is a volunteer position,
It's a
right?
volunteer. They'll really meet once or twice if they want. If they want to come in and meet with the auditors ahead of time, they can. They basically just review the audit. As the state auditors would come in with all their findings, the auditors set up a meeting, and they basically report out what the audit happened or what had occurred during the audit and all their findings, if any. And then these gentlemen and ladies would ask questions about the audit.
Okay. I asked that question. I thought it was. I just think that's awesome. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask, but my mic's on, so. Are any of them in the room? I just wanted to recognize them and thank them. That's just really awesome that they're willing to do that.
Anything else before we call the roll? Hearing nothing, Mr. Griffith?
Dr. French,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mrs. Crowe,
Yes.
Mr. Vilardo,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, the Audit Committee has been appointed. Item 12 on the agenda, appointment of board designee as public records official. And this is to appoint that board designee as public records official. Could I have a motion to bring this to the table?
So moved.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, the board designee who serves as the public records official, let me pull this up here,
Would be me.
suggests that we approve Mr. Griffith.
Madam President, members of the board, that's only a suggestion. Feel free to have somebody else to do it, like Mr. Hershiser or even Greg V. Brands in the audience. This will be about the 10th time. See, just what you need to understand is when you all are elected, you're supposed to go. But if you so choose not to and elect an appointee, I go. I think this is number 10 for me. And I hear the same thing. So, but I'll still happily be your representative, but I strongly encourage the three of you to sign up and go and hear what they have to offer. It's a 3-hour training. They're very strict on the time that you're there. But it's an interesting, the first time it's interesting, I'm not sure about the 10th time. But what you're designating me is to go on your behalf, and that any records that this district releases has to come through me. That's what this is doing. Okay?
With that explanation or plea offered to us, we can vote on the resolution as it stands, or we can choose to amend it and insert someone else's name. Any of us or any lucky person who might be so
I'll do it.
nominated.
Can I make a motion to close nominations at this point?
You're just appointing me, so
No, we
you're
don't have to
fine.
do it. I was just giving you the opportunity to make that amendment.
You're
for
fine. I'll go
Bart.
on your behalf. I'm just
Oh, I
kind
know
of.
you will.
But I would encourage you guys to go just to listen to it and hear what kind of records that they are eligible to receive.
Yeah.
They do them throughout the year. I'll let you know. I know that Mr. Vibrant said they're doing one in Hilliard, I think on the 31st of this month, but they have them throughout the year, and I have the whole year to go, so it's not a problem. But it's a free meeting, and if you're willing to want to go, let me know. I'll set you up.
It'd be a good idea, really, to go at
Yes.
some point during the year if you get a chance to go. And Bart, I'm sure would be happy to go with us, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no problem.
Given that no one wishes to amend the motion, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Vilardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mrs. Crow, Dr. French,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes. The board designee as public records official has been approved. Moving on to item 13, the sale of real estate. Item 13.01 is a resolution to authorize the sale of real estate owned by the board and no longer needed for school purposes. Could we have a motion to bring this to the table?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second,
Let me start off, this isn't really mine, but let me start off. The reason we put this back on the agenda, if you remember when we had our special board meeting, work session in December, we had a motion and second, but it got tabled for the next regular meeting. The next regular meeting is at the end of January. I basically recommended and chose to put it on tonight, not because we have it, also because there's a sale, but the person who seconded and made a motion, or motion made a second last time, are no longer on the board. And for me, it was cleaner to have all 5 new board members make this resolution, motion, and a roll call. What'll happen is at the next meeting, it just won't appear on the next meeting, which means it dies. Okay, so this is a brand-new motion. It's not one we're bringing back from the table from December because we have new board members, and I didn't want 7 names in the agenda. You know, I wanted the people who made a motion second to be a current board member. Okay, make sense?
yes. And
That's
my
why I
memory
did-
of Robert's rule says, yes, that is correct,
Okay,
yes.
So that's why it's on here now. So
Yes.
I don't know who has the explanation for this one, but I just want to explain why it's on here now.
That would fall, yeah, I'm going to earn my keep at this point.
Okay.
The recommendation is, as we've discussed before, to sell the 2 houses, affectionately known as the White House and the Yellow House on Walnut. Those are 2 properties that, as they're zoned, have limited use for us. We have no need for that space. We did capitalize on it at a time period when we needed to in transition, where we had office space there in the past. We've served as owner and tenant as we've leased it, and it just seems to us at this time the wise move is to make the recommendation for the sale. We don't see any long-term benefit to the district. We have a buyer ready to go. He's actually been very patient with us as we've worked through it in transition. And after lots of discussion amongst the administrative team and working with Jeff LaRose, who's done an outstanding job of getting this ready, be our recommendation to move forward with the resolution to sell these 2 houses. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions, comments?
Nope.
I do have a question and a comment, both. When the district bought the Davis property many years ago now, we needed that property desperately, not for the houses. We needed it for the land that was attached to it, and we have certainly gotten our money's worth from that particular purchase. One of the things that concerned me a great deal about the White House, as you call it, I call it the Davis House, was that during much of the time that the district owned the house, we let it rot. And that was an extraordinarily unfortunate use of that property and approach to that particular house. The house, as some of you probably know, has very, very strong literary ties within the state of Ohio. And watching it succumb to the elements was very distressing and was something that concerned me a great deal long before I ever served on the board back during the prequel to where we are now. At late in my term, my first sequence of years on the board, we were out of space. We desperately needed office space at that time, just as we had desperately needed land years before, we desperately needed office space now. And the district did step forward at that point in time and invest the necessary funds to bring that building back up to some semblance of what it should be. And Jeff, you did a phenomenal job with that project, and I continue to thank you for that all the time, every time I drive by the place. But the clock ticks and the calendar turns, and once again we were in the place where we don't need that space anymore. So I don't want to run the risk ever, not that I'm saying we would do it, or Jeff would do it, or John, or anyone else would let it fall to rot again. I'm not willing to take the chance of putting it in the position where it comes last for expenditures once more. I think the best chance of keeping that property in decent shape is to relinquish it into someone else's hands at this point. With that, and the reason I'm telling you that is because a few of you who are here tonight remember very clearly my stance on the property in the past, and I wanted you to understand why I will vote to sell it now. I also vote to sell it because, John, this is the question I said I had. I believe, and I want to know if I'm accurate, the city is very interested in maintaining the Walnut Street streetscape, and I want to make sure that the city is still deeply interested in how that appears. It's another way that I feel I'm protecting this property if I'm sure that the city is well invested in maintaining a lookout.
And if Jeff wants to comment, he can as well, but my understanding in our conversation with the city about that issue is, A, the zoning of the property is such that there's not much you can do there beyond residential as a rental. The individual purchasing it isn't interested in doing anything with it other than as a rental, and actually in an email to us expressed an interest in actually taking over the property himself in the future. So you may see modifications to the property, for example, some kind of a garage and a driveway that'll make it more residential. But in terms of maintaining the streetscape, I know the city has that interest, and I don't foresee it being bulldozed and some other use going on there.
You're going to see me chaining myself to the porch of the Davis house. Okay.
Yes.
Probably right after you've told me a few things, you chain yourself to the house up there. I help put you in this position. But we feel, as you do, that really the school district being in a position to try and maintain that property is really not our purpose and really not the way our funds should be allocated. So turning over the maintenance of that to someone who has a business investment in it from a residential perspective, and the city's maintaining the need to maintain that streetscape seems to me the most logical thing to do at this time. So while there's no concrete promises that something else can happen, we do think that everybody's best interests are aligned the same way.
Thank you. And for those of you who are not aware, who have not followed this discussion from December on, we are talking about an aggregate purchase price of $220,000 for both of those properties, the Yellow House and the Davis House. Any other comments or questions?
Just let folks know that I've gotten a number of emails on this. It received actually a couple even this morning. And to a person, they have suggested it needs to be sold. We need to move on. Good investment perhaps at the time, but just time to move on. So,
Bart, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. French,
Yes.
Mr. Vilardo,
yes.
Mrs. Crowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes. 13.01, the sale of real estate on Walnut Street has been approved. Moving on to item 14. We're already at the board comments section of this particular meeting. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first since I'm the old timer along with Cindy here, and we're glad to see. I just want to welcome the three new additions to our family here, and we appreciate all that they've taken time and interest in this board so far. Done a lot of homework and preparation, so that is appreciated, and looking forward to a great year. With all five of us, and glad to see Cindy back, and we're just ready to go. So I just wanted to make a comment that we appreciate having you all, and hoping that we move on with some understanding and help for our teachers and our students. We hope that we can offer some new things at the high school level and the middle school level, and I won't go into this, but these are dreams that I have. One of the dreams I had, we just completed when I first started the board 2 years ago. That was to rid ourselves of the properties that we probably shouldn't have been in the business of doing. So we're slowly accomplishing things, looking forward to a new year. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Want me to go? You wanna go? I want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to sit up here at this table. It's an honor, and I greatly appreciate it.
Rick, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I just want to say thank you for folks giving me this opportunity. I'm humbled by this responsibility. I take very seriously that at the end of the day, this group, along with the tremendous people who work in this facility, we are to increase the educational opportunities for all our kids, the ones who struggle the most and the ones who are doing quite well. And I have been, and this is just me, so, it's just, excuse the language. I've just been praying about this day and about these next couple years. 4 years, sorry. And I am grateful for the support that I've received already from the staff. Folks been very helpful. From Cindy and Carol, who know more about any of this than I'll ever know. And I'm grateful for my family, who will take everything that is said about me to heart. I don't, but they do. And I think it's begun to be more meaningful to me to be a part of this community and to consider the fact that there are kids in the preschool here and in the kindergarten classes and the seniors And I just want them to, I've thought hard about this, so let me just end it with this. I would like to figure out ways that we can help them love learning. No matter their innate abilities. I think it would be very special if when they leave our district, they just love to learn. I think that would be a great legacy.
Thank you. And so a new board begins. Every board has a personality, and it will be interesting to watch this particular set of board members, this particular board's personality emerge. I think, well, I know, I'll be really surprised if you don't find this board to be highly engaged in so much that goes on in both the district and within the community at large. I think you'll find this board to be very committed to creating options and pathways and new ways of doing things and looking at things so that we continue to maintain the excellence that this community expects. The school system is one of the finest things that our community has. And because of that, serving on the board is, to use a term that's probably more in Rick's bailiwick than mine, it is a sacred charge. And it is something that I take very, very seriously, and I know that my colleagues do as well. We're going to work really hard, and we're going to make some mistakes, and we're going to get some things right. And what we're going to do with everyone. And by doing that, we'll make a very strong district. We'll make the best learning opportunities happen that we possibly can. We'll make this a place where educators want to be and want to stay. And we'll make it a place that all of us are proud to say is ours. And with that, item 15 on the agenda, dates, times, and locations of next meetings. January 27th at 6 o'clock p.m., regular session here in the Early Learning Center at 936 East Wynn in the board training room. February 10th at 6 o'clock, that is a regular meeting for the purpose of work session, and that also will be held here at the East Wind location. And then February 24th at 6 o'clock, also a regular session, and also here at the Early Learning Center. With that, we're moving to adjournment. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. With a motion and a second for adjournment, would you call the roll, Bart?
Mrs. Davidson.
Yes.
Mrs. Crow.
Yes.
Dr. French.
Yes.
Mr. Vilardo.
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker.
Yes, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. Good job.